Welcome back. Food prices are back in focus, along with the companies making a buck off them. Here's a look at food in Canada by the numbers. At 6.9% in August, food inflation is alive and well in Canada, though that is a drop from the 8.5% increase back in July. It was a mixed picture for food, with fresh fruit up 0.2% in August, but cereal prices up 9.8%. Chicken gained 8.9%. Meanwhile, some prices have moderated. Pork is down 6% from July to August and is down as well from a year ago. Oranges, meanwhile, fell almost 4% from July, but are still almost 7% above year-ago levels. Food was pricey in restaurants, too. Inflation there was 6.1% in August. Promises were made this week in Ottawa, with the largest players in the grocery industry agreeing to come up with plans to stabilize prices. Was it all for show, or is there actually something they can do that they haven't done yet? Sylvain Charlesbois is director of the Agri-food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Sylvain, great to have you with us.
Nice to see you, Amanda.
So as somebody who follows this space so closely and understands the economics of the whole chain, I'm curious to know what your thoughts were about that they're now expected to come back with company-specific plans in the next couple of weeks. Do you think that's realistic? Will we see something meaningful?
Well, I was in the room on Monday with the Big Five, and it was an interesting meeting. To be honest, I think it was actually constructive. It went as good as it could, given the fact that we had five companies competing against each other, talking to the minister. And obviously, I came in with a briefing telling everyone, including the minister, that there's no evidence of profiteering, so let's focus on solutions. Now, those solutions will be presented later. We just learned this week that there'll be a reform for the Competition Act. The minister intends to make the Competition Bureau more authoritative, which is really needed right now.
Interesting, even the Bank of Canada in its most recent meeting noted that companies were quick to raise prices when inflationary pressures appeared global in nature. Will they be as quick to lower them, Sylvain? And I guess I would ask you, in this industry, is that the case normally? It's a very competitive industry. Will they bring prices down as quickly as they went up?
I'm not sure they can, really, Amanda. When you actually look at the entire world, costs have gone way up. In fact, if you look at industrial prices in Canada, the index has exceeded the CPI over the last 3 years. So pressures are actually real for grocers. So I don't think that prices will drop, but we are expecting some calmness, which makes things more manageable for retailers. So, in other words, we're expecting more promotions, more loss leaders, but your basket of goods won't get cheaper.
And because some of the forces that are influencing that, and I would put on that list, global energy prices, green transition costs, but also extreme weather, Sylvain, that we saw all over the world this year, are not going anywhere. Do we think inflation in food is actually a new normal, or will we stabilize at higher prices? Might we at least come to settle in at $8 butter and stay there?
Well, a new normal, high prices. Everything is relative, right? Because a Canadian will spend about 10% of its budget, of his or her budget, on food, which is the sixth lowest percentage in the world. Often we compare ourselves with the Americans. The Americans are at 6.7%, which is the lowest in the world. So in a grand scheme of things, we're doing okay in Canada. Is our higher prices a new normal? Well, yes, but it is a new normal everywhere on earth as well.
Of course, one of the reasons that the grocers are a bit on their hind foot is because a couple of the biggest players were found to have come together on pricing around bread in time gone by. That kind of bad PR doesn't work for them. Are we right to see the suspicion that people have? Or to your point, we now have evidence from several different quarters. They're not profiteering off inflation. Can we trust them to not do so?
So on Monday, what I said to the Big Five and the minister, there's no evidence of profiteering. However, and this is a big however, 82% of Canadians actually believe that profiteering greed is actually behind higher food prices. So the consumer trust is really just not there. And CEOs know that. They know that they need to do something. And frankly, Amanda, I actually do think the Canadians just don't feel protected. The bread price scandal, the investigation has been going on for 8 years. It's still going on after 8 years. That's not acceptable. And that's why I think Canadians are really frustrated.
Sylvain, so good to have you for this. Appreciate your time.
Take care.
Sylvain Charlesbois, director of the Agri-food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. More competition is one suggestion about creating more downward price pressure for grocery items. That includes smaller grocers as well as opening up to more international players. Gary Sands is Vice President of Government Relations at the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers. Gary, great to have you with us.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with your view of what went on this week. Was it political theater or were there real conversations happening that might change pricing?
Well, I don't know what impact it's going to have yet on pricing. There were real conversations taking place. The chains met with the government on Monday. We met just yesterday with the minister and the government, and we had some very constructive discussions. About the Competition Act, the amendments that were tabled yesterday, and we're very supportive of those, but we did have some conversations around pricing and some of the impacts that they have. And I guess one of the key points that we made to the minister, and I want to stress before I say this, that we're not pointing fingers at suppliers, we're not pointing fingers at the chains. In fact, the independents, we've actually been defending the chains on the greedflation and pointing out that the price increases that they've been seeing, we've been seeing too.
Yep.
And they're significant. But if the chains come forward with a plan, which is apparently the commitment to do before Thanksgiving, and that involves them imposing a price freeze on their suppliers, then our question is, where does that put us? Because independent grocers don't have the ability to simply impose a price freeze on their suppliers. So if we're going to have price stability, it has to be for all Canadians, not just some Canadians, depending on where they shop.
Yeah, it could actually make life more complicated for the independent grocers. You have been a defender of competition in the space, and we know that there are thousands of independent grocers. Should there be more, though? I mean, one of the kind of inferences we're getting here is that there are things like land use agreements that keep new players from the market. Is that true? And would we be better off with more of you?
Yes, we would be better off with more independent grocers. We have 6,900 independent grocers in Canada, and there are already a number of barriers out there to having new independent grocers enter the market. The land controls is just one of them. We were the ones that raised that with the Bureau, so we were really and with the government. So we were really pleased to see that issue is going to be tackled by the government, and I think also there's a role for the provinces in that issue as well. But there's other issues too that need to be addressed, and we are talking about those in the Grocery Code of Conduct. One of the paramount issues that we're talking about in the Grocery Code of Conduct, by the way, is fair supply and the need to ensure we have fair and reliable supply for those independents. And I just want to add, and I'm maybe going on a bit of a diatribe here, but many of those 6,900 independent grocers in Canada, they're in a myriad of communities that are rural and remote.
Right.
And if we don't have fair supply and more of those independent grocers being able to stay on the playing field in Canada, then we're treading into areas of food security for many of those people in those communities in Canada. A
subject we will be talking about, Gary. We've got to leave it there for today, but appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Gary Sands is VP of Government Relations at the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers. Coming up, Canada's competition laws will get a refresh. What will that actually mean? That's still ahead. But first, one likely future for the aviation industry is one that includes a more sustainable form of jet fuel. This week, WestJet said it's fully on board with the idea. Of course, it's not clear what that fuel will be or who will make it or whether it will arrive in time for the industry to meet its net zero goals by 2050. But I'm sure everyone is very relieved that WestJet is clearing it for takeoff, even if it's with a slight delay. We're back after this.